By applying the proper color management settings here in the application, you can ensure that what you see truly is what you get. Because what you're seeing on screen, or the colors that you're seeing on screen, may not necessarily output in exactly the same way. And if they don't, that means that you're not using the proper color management settings in the color settings dialog box. So I'd like to show you how to go about doing that now. Before we even get into the color settings dialog box, let me just recommend that if you really want to work with color management, the first thing you should do is calibrate your monitor. This can be done using either software or hardware. The hardware side of it actually is something called a colorimeter. That's one of those things that it's got a sucker and you stick it on your screen and it calculates what's going on behind the scenes there, and it creates an ICC profile for the device, which is your monitor. ICC profiles are specific to devices. That includes monitors, scanners, cameras, and we use these profiles to let our software know what our ultimate destination workspace is going to be. What our working space is going to be is usually our monitor, and what our destination workspace is going to be is usually a printing press, right? Or an inkjet printer or something like that, whatever you're designing for, or maybe it's another monitor because you're designing to be displayed out on the web. So we want to use the right ICC profiles, and we can do so by choosing the right settings in the color settings dialog box. So how do we get to this dialog box? Well, under the edit menu, if you go down here to the bottom where it says color settings, or you can use this handy dandy little keyboard shortcut of Command-Shift-K, and that'd be Control-Shift-K in Windows. We can bring up the dialog box, and you can see up here we have our settings menu. Okay, now these are presets. If we choose one of these guys in here, it's going to change what is displayed down here and the different items that are selected from these various menus, including our working spaces and our color management policies. So the first thing I want to focus on here are the working spaces, and we'll come back to our settings. Working spaces is the environment that you're currently editing the image in, and that normally is RGB, and usually what's chosen is the sRGB mode here. But a lot of times it's better to choose the Apple RGB or the Adobe RGB. CMYK is usually US Web Coded Swap v2, is the sort of generic profile that you're going to use in order to go to a printing press. A lot of the output providers and printers out there will usually ask that you choose this. There are other specific options like US Sheet-Fed Coded v2. These can sometimes be good for glossy brochures, and the US Sheet-Fed Uncoded v2, which can be good for dull finish brochures, and they may ask you to use this profile. And then, of course, we have our gray and spot, and these are usually at dot gain 20%, unless your output provider tells you to change these otherwise. So these are the working spaces. So in other words, we're designing our RGB images to ultimately be output using this profile attached to it. And then for CMYK, which would be print, for color process, we're using this profile, unless we're instructed to use otherwise. And for gray and spot, these as well. Now down here we have color management policies, and this is how Photoshop is handling images that you're opening that may or may not have profiles already applied or attached to them. Down here, we're talking about profile mismatches and then missing profiles as well. What we want to happen when we're opening up these files. If there's a profile mismatch, do we want Photoshop to ask us how we want to handle that when we're opening it, or ask when we're pasting it? And if there's a missing profile, do we want it to ask when we're opening it? We can choose all these options, and then we can get a dialog box every time we open those up. I generally turn these guys off, so I don't have to see that every time. Instead, I just choose the options from up here. Do we want to preserve the embedded profiles or convert to the working RGB, which is the selection up here? Generally, I preserve it, and when I'm ready to convert and finalize the file, I'll do so then. If I'm converting to CMYK, it will go to this profile, and that's down here. Or you can do it when you open the file. I think generally it's better to just preserve the image the way it was sent to you until you're ready to actually convert to profile. Okay, when you're ready to convert the final edited image. And same with gray. Right? So I would leave all of this the way it is. Rather than getting all these dialog boxes when you're opening images, leave it to preserve embedded and use this over here, these settings. I'm going to click OK to get out of this. I want to show you also that you can apply color management across the entire Creative Suite, and that can be done through Bridge. We'll go in here to Bridge, bring that up. I'm actually going to go to the Edit, Creative Suite color settings. And what you can do is actually synchronize using those presets that we saw earlier across the suite, which means that InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, all of the applications that you're using as you're designing are using the exact same color settings. So that's an interesting way to work, and this can only be done through Bridge. So if you were to go into those color settings and choose a different set of color settings, that didn't match this here and didn't match this preset, then this would say unsynchronized. And then something's out of whack. That means that Photoshop may be using different color settings than InDesign or vice versa, depending on what you've set in your different dialog boxes. So you may want to consider synchronizing your color settings across the suite, in case you didn't know that that option was available to you. So hopefully by watching this movie, you now understand a little bit more about what color management is, how it can help ensure that what you're seeing on screen is what you're going to get in your final output process, whatever that may be, if it be for the web or if it be for print. And hopefully by learning about these different settings, it can help you choose the right ones. It'll make your workflow a little bit better.